and fulfillment centers, and several other industries. The project includes more than a $500,000 investment to date, and the company has now filled 35 competitive paying positions at this facility. Better yet, hiring efforts will continue throughout the remainder of the year. This operation supports so many key industries in the Commonwealth. From e-commerce to manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, and food and beverage, technology developed by AHS helps operations improve efficiently and take their business to the next level. I want to thank the leaders at AHS and High-Tech for their commitment to Kentucky. We also have Accuride Corporation, which just this morning announced a $2 million investment, creating 15 good-paying jobs in Henderson County. This is yet another big announcement for Henderson, which has had significant job growth, certainly in the last 5 or 6 months, along with our big announcement and groundbreaking on I-69. Accuride is a manufacturer of wheels, wheel ends, and braking components for commercial and passenger vehicles. The location also includes research and development and testing operations. This is what we've been pushing for, not just to be the workers, but the thinkers and the innovators of tomorrow. With this investment, Accuride is showing that just like so many other companies, they trust us, not just to create their product, but ultimately to improve it. Company leaders are implementing facility and equipment upgrades to position the plant for additional projects in the year ahead. This includes roofing and other repairs, updating of an assembly welder robot, and improved airflow throughout the facility. And the 15 new jobs at this operation are going to pay $39 an hour, including benefits. The project will push Accuride's employment to over 150 people at the more than 300,000 square foot facility in Henderson County. This is a company that has called Northwestern Kentucky home for nearly 50 years. And it's currently producing 10,000 heavy steel wheels daily for the heavy truck industry. This is just the latest great Kentucky company that is growing to support our automotive market. Since the start of our administration, auto-related companies have invested more than $9.4 billion while creating 11,000 new full-time jobs for Kentuckians. We've seen tremendous growth in this area, and we are just getting started. So thank you to Accuride and everybody who made this project possible. So that's good news in what we're seeing in the private sector for Kentuckians. We also, earlier this week, had some great news in terms of fiscal management of state government. See, one of my most important jobs as governor is to ensure the financial strength and solvency of the Commonwealth itself, to make sure that our financial house is in order, to make sure that we live by our means and that our economy is growing even as we face a challenging present. So on Monday, I reported a 14.6% yearly growth in the general fund. That is the highest growth in revenue since fiscal year 1991, highest growth in 31 years. General fund receipts totaled $14.7 billion, resulting in a surplus that by the time we close the books will be over $1 billion. That is the second highest surplus the state has ever seen, because the highest was last year. That means this administration, the Beshear administration, has now posted the 2 highest budget surpluses in the Commonwealth's history. And just think about all the other things going on right now. We have posted the lowest unemployment rate in Kentucky's history for 2 straight months. We have the fewest number of people on unemployment since the year 2000. We're seeing more jobs and better wages for Kentuckians. We broke every economic development record in the books last year. We become the electric vehicle battery production capital of the United States of America, the agri-tech capital of the United States of America, all in these last several years. When we look at the financial management of the Commonwealth, what's in the bank, we have our largest general fund ever. By the time this year closes, it'll be over $2.7 billion. Folks, it was $129 million when I came in. This just furthers the continued economic momentum for the Commonwealth. Just look at what credit rating agencies that for so long had called our economy poor are now saying. Both S&P Global Ratings and Fitch Ratings have upgraded our outlook to positive, the first positive economic rating in over 15 years. Site Selection Magazine placing us 6th in the entire country on their prosperity rankings. Folks, we are dealing with a challenging present of a pandemic, of inflation, of a Russian invasion of Ukraine, of the natural disasters that we've seen and we've gone through. But we can deal with this adversity because, unlike many other states, what's sitting on the other side for us is really bright, is really optimistic, and is full of more possibilities for my kids and your kids and grandkids than many of us ever dreamed would be possible. We are going to push through the challenges we face, and we are going to achieve that collective dream of every parent and grandparent, one I feel in my core, that our kids will never have to leave Kentucky or the region they're from if they don't want to, because every opportunity we're going to make sure is available for them right here. But I get that the present does bring challenges, and inflation is certainly one of those major challenges. News coming out today on the consumer price index and overall on the inflation rate that's tough. Some of the highest in 40 years, the highest that many of us have ever seen or ever had to budget through. And it's in areas like food and gas and in energy, in rent, in so many different areas. And I wanted to just take a minute to make sure that we acknowledge what we're facing. First, it's more complex than a political talking point. There is no one thing you can point to that any party did that caused inflation. Inflation that we're facing right now deals with issues to supply chains caused by a global pandemic, to shortages in various things, to maybe globalization that went too far and not having critical suppliers close to home. Let me just give you an example that I was reading about today. And that's where it hits so many people the hardest, and that's in the grocery store. You look at all the different things that we are facing. You have the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I think between the two countries, it's about 40% of the world's wheat supply. That's obviously going to have a major impact. Avian flu, what we call bird flu, has made a major impact in eggs that is increasing those prices. The heat that we have seen all across the country has had a major impact on corn and other crops. We have tight milk supplies. So it's all of these things that are all happening at the same time and normally don't. But let's remember that we can push through it and that we address all of these, but it doesn't fit simply in any political box. It should be a challenge that we face together and that we get through together. And there are some signs or some good notes that are out there. We see so many food prices going up, but beef and pork prices are going down, which we hadn't seen until recently, as are citrus fruits. Rent, way too high. But most of the major analysts are saying they think it's going to start going down here soon. And gas, man, as we watch the gas prices fly up, the sticker shock and not only seeing it up there, but filling up your tank, gas has gone down almost every day for the last 30 days. In Kentucky, gas has fallen 50 cents a gallon over the last month on average. It's fallen 4 cents a gallon just since yesterday. And as of today, we're 32 cents below the national average. Current average in Kentucky is $4.28 a gallon. A month ago, it was $4.78. Over the last month, gas has fallen on average 57 cents in Bowling Green, 45 cents in Covington, 69 cents in E-Town, 57 cents in Henderson, 50 cents in Hopkinsville, 34 cents in Lexington, 45 cents in Louisville, and 70 cents in Owensboro. I saw today in Frankfort, the first gas station I have in a while, where gas was below $4 a gallon. And we're seeing that in a couple areas across Kentucky. It was John Hicks, our new incoming Secretary of the Cabinet, but our budget director. He said something to me the other day that stuck with me. He said, when you watch inflation, it's like a rocket going up and like a feather coming down. Well, we're certainly seeing in a couple of areas, including gas, that we're starting to see some decline in prices. So just a couple of silver linings that are out there, but acknowledging it is still really hard. And that's why we continue to do everything we can in state government to save you $1, whether it's in the areas where prices are going up or another area where we can free up $1. That's why in February, I froze the rate on vehicle property taxes for 2 years. That saves Kentuckians $340 million. That's why I tried to get the General Assembly to decrease sales tax, which would have saved money on everything, virtually everything you buy. It would have saved Kentuckians $873 million. General Assembly said no. I bet now with the price of everything, they wish they'd said yes. I've joined other governors in asking for congressional leadership and presidential leadership in reducing the federal gas tax. I've asked for the EPA to remove the reformulated gas requirement on the Louisville area, which would save money. They said no, and no for now. I've asked for allowance of a butane mix in gasoline that would lower the price maybe 20 to 30 cents. We are waiting to hear back from that. I've declared a state of emergency on gas prices so that people can report to the Attorney General if they believe that they are being gouged out there, and to set a baseline to ensure that gougers can be pursued if that is happening. So we're going to continue to do everything we can, and in a minute are going to talk about some other ways to save. But today I'm announcing one more bit of good news that should help Kentuckians. See, one area that has seen significant growth over the last few years is Kentucky's real estate market. By July 1 of each year, the Kentucky Department of Revenue is required by statute to set the state real property tax rate. And for the second year in a row, the state real property tax rate is going down. This year, it's dropping from 11.9 cents to 11.5 cents per $100 of assessed values. These are the only 2 years the rate has decreased since 2008. So under this administration, in the last 2 years, we have reduced the real property tax rate. So while state real property tax rates are going down, valuations sometimes are going up. That occurs through the PVAs, and it'll mean for some people, you might not save, or you might not save as much, while for other people, depending on when your inspections and valuations are, you may see a real reduction this year. The drop in the state rate may also help mitigate an increase by local taxing districts, which can sometimes include school, county district, library district, fire protection, soil conservation, health department, and ambulance district. But I want Kentuckians to know we're watching. We know that the property you own has gone up in value. That's why we have cut the property tax rate for real estate, to try to help out, to ensure that your bill isn't going up or up significantly, and hopefully for many of you, in fact, going down. In addition to these actions, we've been outlining 5 programs that Kentuckians can research to see if their families can save. It's the Team Kentucky Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Fund. A complete list of requirements can be found on that website. There is a separate Lexington program for it. That helps you in utilities and in rent, both backwards and forwards if you're struggling. There's a homeowners assistance fund, which can help in mortgages and other taxes that may be owed. Qualified homeowners can get up to $35,000 of assistance, and people should check that out. There's the Affordable Connectivity Program that can save people on their monthly internet bill. That's a federal program. There's the Kentucky Child Care Assistance Program that helps eligible families pay for child care. And then there's local community action agencies across the state that have a ton of different programs. But I'm going to talk about 2 new ones today that families should research whether they fall into. You know, at the end of the month, when it's tough to afford gas and food, it's also tough to afford prescription drugs. These are 2 programs that may be able to help. First, there's the Kentucky Prescription Assistance Program, the first of 2 new additions this week. It assists Kentuckians who cannot afford prescription medications with accessing drug manufacturers and pharmacy assistance programs. A network of more than 250 advocates across the Commonwealth serve Kentuckians with accessing free or reduced cost medication, as well as other basic needs. The second new resource is the Medicare Prescription Drug Plan Costs, which helps lower costs for qualified individuals. You can now visit the website on the screen where we brought all of these programs together. It's governor.ky.gov/tips to save. This is one area that you can go to and link through all of these other programs. If you're having trouble making ends meet, some of the families I talked to in Christmas and in July, which we'll talk about here in a minute, were saying, the rent's tough. I lost my home. I'm renting. The rent's tough. I've said, have you looked at the Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Fund? They said, no, but we'll do it. So let's make sure we can connect people to these services, take advantage of every dollar that can help our people. All right, next up, I want to talk about another step our administration is taking to prioritize mental health with everything we have been through. Certainly a subject and a topic that we need to address, one that we needed to be doing more before a pandemic, but certainly now is front and center. Kentucky will soon take part in a national changeover to the easy remember 3-digit suicide and mental health crisis lifeline, which is 988. That connects Kentuckians facing thoughts of suicide, mental health distress, and addiction crisis with compassionate and trained counselors who can help. Just think about this as the 911 of mental health. When you dial 911, they are connected and ready to send first responders in terms often of physical emergencies, of sickness. This puts you directly in touch with experts and those trained in mental health to help you at that moment that may be the lowest moment for many people that they are going through. It's available 24/7, and counselors respond to calls. They chat, direct text message those in need, as well as Kentuckians who are concerned about a loved one who may need crisis support. Our administration has prioritized mental health the same way as physical health. In the launch of 988, we're making it easier for Kentuckians to reach out and get the help they need. The 988 Lifeline is part of a nationwide departure away from the 10-digit National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which you'd have to dial in the whole thing now, just 988, and help for mental health. But the National Suicide Prevention Hotline remains available, but starting July 16th, 988 begins. What this means is that phone service providers will now direct 988 calls to the existing National Lifeline with 13 Kentucky call centers. With this change, we do anticipate an increase in calls due to easier call number and text capabilities. And if you need suicide or mental health crisis support, or you're worried about someone who does, if it's right now, call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Call the whole number, which at the moment is 800-273-8255, and July 16th, it'll just be 988. A lot has made this possible in Kentucky, a number of grants, a lot of people who have worked to make it happen. We are appreciative to all of them. Update on the city of Marion and the water crisis they face. As you know, its main water supply, Lake George, had to be drained after there was going to be a catastrophic dam failure that would have taken out the backup lake as well as a couple of bridges. And therefore, we relieved the pressure on Lake George. But obviously, we are now faced with this situation. We're getting daily coordinated efforts to bring bottled water to the city and find short and long-term solutions by the Kentucky Emergency Operations Center, numerous state agencies like the National Guard, the Division of Water, the Transportation Cabinet, as well as the city of Marion and local agencies, the private sectors, and a bunch of really incredible volunteers. We are in the community each day working to find the best way to get to that long-term solution. Leak detection and repair crews have identified and fixed water lines, saving an estimated 144,000 gallons of water per day. Remember at our last update, we said we had to make sure that we got every single bit of water coming into the system to customers. So this is a really good update. So that savings of 144,000 gallons per day in finding and fixing leaks is about a third of what the city was using daily before the emergency. That's a big deal. By tomorrow, we expect to have an engineering report laying out the scope of work needed to complete a water connection from the city of Marion to Sturgis Water Company. We've been working on this for a while. It is getting closer. The National Guard is continuing to distribute bottled water to those in need. We've handed out now more than 398,000 bottles of water provided by the state and a limited amount of donated water of areas that had it left over from donations from the tornadoes went to help other people in need. So that's about 60,000 gallons of water directly into Kentuckians' hands. The volume of raw water hauled to Marion has increased to 120,000 gallons per day. That's a good increase. With the help of P&H Farms, we have 5 additional trucks with the capacity to hold 5,500 gallons. P&H is supplementing the National Guard's capacity of 4 trucks and 2,000 gallons per truck. Additionally, a secondary source of water has been identified, and our Kentucky Division of Water has confirmed the water quantity and quality are sufficient to meet water hauling needs. The Division of Water is also working on guidance for residents who have bulk water storage or are considering drilling their own wells. Division of Water will provide information about plumbing cross connections to those who need it. And we've also issued CDC guidance to the local media and city officials on how to follow boiled water advisory. Our goal is to keep everybody safe, everybody healthy. These steps, along with better flow from previous connection that they made, has us in a better position, but certainly the heat is not helping. And understandably, anybody in an area that's concerned about not having enough water has a right to be nervous. Please know we're working hard on it every day, and we're not going to leave until we get the job done. Now moving on to tornado recovery. Now, 7 months after the devastating tornadoes hit Western Kentucky, our recovery efforts remain strong. But rebuilding is a process, and we still have to work to get every single person impacted back up on their feet. The Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund was created with this long-term strategy in mind. We knew the Red Cross, United Way, and others would be there in the aftermath to face the emergency situation. But then there was the intermediate housing and ultimately the rebuilding. That's why we set up this fund, and that's how we talked about it. To date, over 150,000 individuals and organizations have donated over $52 million. These are funds above and beyond federal and state emergency funds that are available. So today I'm announcing that an additional $12 million of the Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund will directly assist individuals still needing basic life essentials. This funding will help individuals who, for example, have possibly received assistance for housing, but they still don't have a refrigerator. Maybe they've lost their transportation or they need essential furniture. Long-term recovery groups are working in their communities to identify these unmet needs, and they'll apply for this assistance for the individuals. Survivors with unmet needs wishing to apply for the assistance can contact their local long-term recovery group. With this announcement, a total of $41.5 million of that $52 million that's been raised has been committed from the fund to help individual Kentuckians and families. And I believe that this now puts the total amount from federal, state aid, along with the Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund, to over $200 million invested in these communities since those tornadoes. Remember, they include things like $16 million of the fund going to rebuild 300 homes in the next year and a half. The Graves County Grain Assistance Program, now working with long-term recovery groups, paying for every funeral, payments above and beyond what FEMA provided to both insured and uninsured renters, paying everybody's deductible who was insured with their home. So a lot more to do, but a lot of progress. And I feel that both the management and use of these funds have directly helped both the communities and the people in need. Let's talk about Christmas in July, since we just got back from doing it in these areas. You know, we talk about it being 7 months from the tornadoes hitting. Remember, they hit right before Christmas, just a couple of weeks. And I still remember when we were all trying to process this, and Brittany was walking the dog, and she calls me, and she said, they don't have any presents. And I said, you mean they lost their Christmas presents? And she said, no, they lost all their presents, Andy. You got a whole bunch of kids, and Christmas is about to hit, that don't have any of their toys, that have lost all of that, and they've just been through this trauma. What will it be like if they have to go through Christmas with nothing? And so you saw her put together with a lot of help, including from some people that are in the room right here, what I think is the most successful toy drive this world has ever seen. She said that she thought she'd get 10,000 toys. She did. And probably another 190,000 on top of that. And we did amazing Christmas parties, and others set them up right before Christmas. And we had such great volunteers. They were delivering presents up to Christmas Eve to make sure families that couldn't get out to where we were hosting them could still have that Christmas. Afterwards, we still had about 3 warehouses full of toys. So, in First Lady fashion, she wanted to make sure that these kids got another great day, because maybe if we can just stack up good day after good day after good day, it can fight the trauma of that one bad night that they had to endure. So starting last Friday, the First Lady and I have gotten to celebrate Christmas in July. I saw Santa Claus in shorts. That was something different that maybe I hope I don't see again. It was in 6 Kentucky communities. It was in Campbellsville and Taylor County, Bowling Green in Warren County, Bremen and Muhlenberg County, Dawson Springs and Hopkins County, Mayfield and Graves County, and Benton in Marshall County. And we'll have one more coming up. Do you want to know how special my wife and your First Lady is? It's what we did all Monday. That was her birthday. She chose to spend her birthday, which she could spend just about anywhere, with our kids and families in Western Kentucky. She is a special lady. I'm pretty lucky. I think we're all pretty lucky. And during those visits, we were also able to make investments in the area. One of the most special things that happened during this is right before we get to the presents themselves, we'd say we also wanted to bring a present for the community to help all the families that are out there. And we talk about broadband awards or others, and everybody cheered. And that hit me, because these are families that had lost almost everything, and they were not only happy, they were almost jubilant that others would have an opportunity to be connected to internet, that others would have real opportunity. You want to talk about seeing a Christmas spirit that wasn't just about the presents, but wanting the best for everybody. We saw it out of these families. So in Bowling Green, we presented more than $1.8 million to Southern Central Telecom for high-speed internet expansion in Edmondson and Warren counties. In Dawson Springs, it's a pretty big check for Dawson, $13.8 million, but for the overall Pennyroyal Rural Electric Cooperative for Caldwell Christian, Lyon, Todd, and Trigg counties. And in Dawson, I thought that was a big check. We had $100,000 to rebuild Dawson Springs City Park, and these kids were jumping up and down. If you've come in and you saw what happened to that park, that's one of the things that's still tough on these families and tough on me. It's $100,000 to help rebuild it. In Mayfield, we presented more than $4.6 million to Gibson Connect for internet expansion in Carlisle, Fulton, Graves, and Hickman counties. In Marshall County, $3.3 million to West Kentucky Rural Telephone Co-op for expansion in Callaway and Marshall County. And in Marshall County, we had about $15,000 for improvements at H.H. Lovett Park in Benton. We're going to be having one final celebration in Princeton here in a couple of weeks, but I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Santa for leaving his Christmas vacation and going, vacation, I guess, from Christmas, and going to all these communities. Really fun, good for the soul. These kids felt special this day. You could see it on their faces. Thanks to everybody who provided the food. That's from one of the restaurants that was wiped out in Mayfield provided the food that day from their current facility. So pretty special what's out there. All right, let's turn, and I'll do a brief update on COVID, and then Dr. Stack's going to talk a little more, because we are seeing a increase in transmission. We're now seeing, I think, a legitimate increase in hospitalizations, and people need to be wary. And certainly if people are in the groups that this virus harms the most, they should definitely think about taking extra steps. First, let's look at our map. This will be updated today. We wouldn't be surprised if we have more red counties than we do now. High transmission through really about a third of Kentucky. But even in areas that are green, we know that there is a lot more COVID that is out there. And people need to really think about what steps they want to take, or the repercussions of steps that they might not take. As we look at new cases, again, this is not the same metric that it used to be, because so many of them aren't reported, I think it's now fair to say we have seen an escalation since our low point. But again, that escalation is nowhere near what prior increases were. It's not spiking up like we saw in the past. It looks like it's more of a slow climb. The other thing, as we'll see, is even in relation to the climb, it is nowhere near as deadly as it was in the past, though it still is harming and taking lives, and we need to be wary of that. A better way to see that there is, in fact, an escalation is the positivity chart. Again, you can't really compare apples to apples here because who is being tested and the fact that we don't see the hospitalization we saw in either of the former spikes. But let's look at hospitalization. So up until now, it was staying fairly low. We are seeing an increase in people hospitalized because of COVID throughout Kentucky. But again, look at that line. It is a slow, maybe steady increase. It is not a spike like Alpha or Delta or original Omicron. And that is because, in my opinion, of vaccinations. It is because of the steps that people take to protect themselves. It's because of possibly some natural immunity, though I think you'll hear that reinfection is more possible now than ever before. And then while hospitalization is now, I call it decoupled, and what I mean is it's not directly proportional to number of cases. That's what we used to have. Cases would go up and hospitalizations would shoot up a week or 2 weeks after, and every other indicator would shoot up, and it would really go by almost the same ratio. That's not the case anymore, but that doesn't mean that it is not increasing. As we look at ICUs, even less of an increase, but still, we see a trajectory that is upward, even if it is less. And then less of a connection with ventilators. I think that there are a number of reasons for that, but we're really grateful for this statistic. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Stack, who will give us a little bit more.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be back. So if we could put up the community level map that we started with there, James, please. So Jim, about 2/3 of the state now are in the red. It's about 37 counties. That's down a few from last week. I think there's a good chance it could go up again for next week. This is a combination metric. This is both the rate of disease spread in the state and also the impact on the hospitals. And the governor's already gone through this in more detail. The high level is the cases are much higher. We know that we can see an increase in the purple stair-stepper chart. That's what's driving more of these counties to be red. It's not hospital capacity concerns at the moment. It's the case count increasing. We also know a lot more people are using antigen tests at home, and that's good. You should use those tools to be responsible, to find disease when it's present, to stay home when you're sick. Please, if you're sick, don't go out in public. We don't need to expose other people to the illness. And then for people to be able to act based on that information appropriately. So we're catching fewer of the total cases. So we know if we were doing this data a year and a half ago, that purple stair-stepper chart would be much taller than it is today because we're not gathering all of that data that you're collecting at home yourself. And that's okay. As long as the hospitalizations stay okay, chasing all of that data doesn't meaningfully impact how we're going to respond to the pandemic. I'm going to observe, because it was in the news this week and it's Kentucky specific, Toyota, as many of you have seen, has required masks. And I want to draw your attention to that because we have on our website, right underneath that map, a color-coded guide that says the things we recommend you do when the disease rates are high. And Toyota has taken a step to require masks in its plants. I think this is important, and I want to, applaud Toyota for doing that and encourage other employers to consider what's appropriate in your setting. Well, gratefully, the hospitals aren't overrun. Well, thankfully, the mortality rate is much lower proportionately than it had been earlier in the pandemic. People still get sick, and then people stay home from work, and then that impacts your operations. And so we know that the disease is spreading rampantly. We know that this disease, whereas the earlier version of COVID, one person with it might have infected 3 or so others. One person with the current Omicron BA.5 variant could infect 18 or more people. That's how easily this spreads. And so employers like Toyota's and others may say, you know what, thank goodness my employees aren't going to hopefully end up in the hospital or end up dying from this. And hopefully if they're vaccinated, then they're very protected. But that doesn't mean I can't take a whole assembly line offline and have you unable to operate your business. So we are solidly at a phase in the pandemic in the United States where individuals who are at higher risk, and I'll say generally people 60 and older, anyone with major medical problems or compromised immune systems, you need to take extra precautions if you're in a red county and maybe even a yellow county. You should probably wear a mask if you have to go indoors. If you can avoid crowded indoor events, you probably should do that. You should think about that because clearly all of us who go out in public can see the multitude of society is moving on and is going to continue doing their activities. So you have to take those extra steps to keep yourself safe. And I'm going to come back at the very end of the vaccines, but everybody who's eligible should get vaccinated and get their first booster. And if you're in higher risk categories, so it's people over 50 or certainly over 60 or high risk medical concerns, you should consider or go out and get that second booster. I would if I were in those categories. Now, if you're generally healthy, I think you might be okay to see what happens in the fall. And if the FDA approves a new version of the vaccine that has 2 variants in it, you might be able to get that in September or so and then protect yourself more broadly. So you can take that down. Thanks, Jim. So the variants are in the news this week. Virtually everything in Kentucky, or everything in total, is some version of Omicron. Nationwide, BA.5 is the variant that is most predominant. The most recent data from the CDC shows about 65% for the entire country for all the sequences are BA.5, and we find pretty much about the same thing in Kentucky right now. So we're in lockstep with the rest of the country. It spreads way faster, way easier than the earlier versions of COVID, but thankfully it does not appear to be any more dangerous at the moment. It's not causing more severe illness. Let me just observe here. All of us now know somebody. There's no way that virtually all of us can't know someone who's had COVID who said, you know what, it set me back a couple of weeks or it set me back a month. I haven't been quite right. I feel more tired. I just have a harder time concentrating. There are a lot of folks who have lingering symptoms for a period of weeks after this happens. We have all got to take this seriously. Doesn't mean we don't go on with life, but this is here to stay, folks. So I think we all still should continue to treat it with a healthy dose of respect. Last 2 things. The other variant that's been in the news lately is B.1.617.3. These numbers start to get long. This is the newest one that was being reported out of India. And this appears to be in the Delta family of the virus. And there's a lot we don't know about it. It looks a little more contagious than the earlier Delta. But for every variant we have found so far, the vaccines all still appear to provide very good protection against severe illness and against death. And I want to just give you a few statistics to put this in context. And if you could put up the second slide while I'm doing this part. The boosted population, people who've got 2 doses and at least a booster, are 15 times less likely to die from COVID than the unvaccinated. 90% of the people who have died over 60 years of age in Kentucky in the last year were unvaccinated. 9 out of 10 people who have died in the last year who are over 60 who have died from COVID are unvaccinated, and 60, I apologize, it was under 60. I probably got that wrong. 90% of the people under 60 have died. So this is virtually a vaccine preventable death if you are under 60. If you get vaccinated, you're not likely to die from COVID. And it's the over 60. I apologize for that confusion. 67% of those over 60 who died were unvaccinated. So it's still 2/3 of the people over 60 who died were unvaccinated, which is still pretty compelling. All in, when you look at this, the risk reduction from death and severe illness and hospitalization is profound if you are vaccinated. And now, the rest of society, it is generally a risk you take for yourself now. So it still helps others if you get vaccinated, but you are really taking a solid risk yourself if you're in a higher risk category and you choose not to get vaccinated. So I hope you'll be open to it, but we all understand it's your choice. And right on this slide that we've had up here for a while, it's this easy to find vaccine. This will be on social media at some point. You can scan that QR code. It'll take you straight to the vaccines.gov website. You put in your zip code, You put how many miles you want to search from there, your age, and what vaccine you're looking for, and it'll show you every location that has the vaccine you're looking for the age group you seek within that radius. It's that easy. And when I did this myself, because I figured this was a while back now, but that the health commissioner should see what it was like for the regular citizens to do this, I used the website. I clicked on it. I found a Kroger near me. I clicked right on the link from the web page and scheduled an appointment online. I showed up and I was in and out in 15 minutes. So I know that this has worked. It works very well. And remember, everyone 6 months and older is eligible now. And for their youngest citizens in Kentucky, for those 6 months to 3 years or so, you're going to have to go to your pediatrician. And I would encourage you to talk to your pediatrician. These are important healthcare decisions, and we want you to feel comfortable. So please talk with your pediatrician or primary care provider. And the very, very final thing, the FDA approved Novavax yesterday. They gave an emergency use authorization for an additional vaccine. This is more of the traditional older school technology. And so now there's another option. And for those of you who had any concerns about the mRNA vaccines, or you were waiting for one of the more traditional technologies, you now have a new option. It's not yet probably available. It's going to take just a little time, like it always does, for the CDC to make their recommendations and then to get it shipped out and get it in place. But in the next few weeks or month, you'll have another option if for some reason the two mRNA vaccines were not appealing to you. You now have a new option, and I would encourage you to be open to it. Folks, it's been a long road, but we've gotten through it a lot better because we've done it together. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you're all having a wonderful summer. Cover.
All right, and finally, our Team Kentucky All-Star. So many people on Team Kentucky are doing amazing things, but this week we want to celebrate one of them, Aydah Lamone, who lives in Lexington. Aydah is a Kentucky writer who has written 6 collections of poetry. She's won a National Book Critics Circle Award for Poetry and has received a ton of fellowships, including one from the Kentucky Foundation for Women. One of Aydah's poems, How to Triumph Like a Girl, has inspired many girls in Kentucky through its description of the triumph of female horses. I've always said that literature is an important part of Kentucky culture. That's why I'm proud to congratulate Aydah, who has been named the 24th U.S. Poet Laureate. Every year, the Library of Congress appoints one American to this esteemed position, and this year, it's a member of Team Kentucky. With this role, Aydah will serve as the official poet of the United States and raise national appreciation for reading and writing poetry. We are proud to have Aydah represent us. I am happy to name her as today's Team Kentucky All-Star. All right, looks like we got about 7 journalists, one in person. We'll start with Tom Latek.
All right, thank you, Governor. I guess I have a question for Dr. Stack, strangely enough.
Come on up. Question is for Dr. Stack.
You've given us a pretty good update on the COVID situation here. What about monkeypox? I know we've gone from 1 case to 3 as of yesterday, I guess, all of which were in Jefferson County. How concerned should we be about that? And is the vaccine for that available as readily as it is for COVID?
Thanks, Tom. So the question is a monkeypox update. So we have identified 3 confirmed cases, all in the area of Jefferson County, Louisville area at present. There are over 900 cases nationwide and close to 10,000 cases globally. There are more cases we have not found. We know that for sure. The vaccine that is available for it is available only in limited supply. So it's a vaccine that was created predominantly for smallpox, but it's also works for monkeypox. And nationwide, there are enough doses by the end of the year, they estimate, to be able to treat up to 800,000 people. It's only 1.6 million doses, and it takes 2 doses is the current recommendation. So we have in Kentucky, our first shipment of about 300 doses are on site. The recommendation is to use it in individuals who have been exposed to monkeypox, so they are at high risk of converting to being positive. And so it's only available through public health. People should, if they feel they've been exposed, communicate with their local health department or communicate with their healthcare provider and discuss their situation with them. And we are actively educating the clinicians to know how to engage with us. There will not be enough vaccine anytime in the foreseeable future just to offer it to everybody in the public. The federal government is taking steps to ramp up the availability of it. That will take a little bit of time. And for right now, the general public is at no significant risk from this illness. The bottom line is this is not like COVID. If we're in the press room like this and 3 people have COVID, the rest of us are probably going to get it after we're in here for an hour together. But if you have monkeypox, we could all be in this room for the whole day. And as long as the other person, I'm not making close physical contact with them, it's unlikely I'm going to get connected to it. So the key thing is just, be careful when you're around people you don't know. Don't get too close to them. Don't be too proximate to them for too long and have personal contact with them. That's how this largely transmits. So we have to be concerned because if it leaps into other populations, it will cause more problems. But right now, the risk to the general public is exceedingly low as long as we take reasonable cautions to not engage in close physical contact with people we're not familiar with. That's likely to get us exposed.
All right, next up is Joe Sonka from the Courier-Journal.
Thanks, Governor. I've got questions for you on 2 topics. First of all, since your presser last week, has the White House given you any additional detail or feedback on the status of a potential Chad Meredith nomination? And when was the last time your office contacted the White House about this? Second topic, to what extent do you think the Republican supermajority in the legislature deserves credit for that large surplus in Kentucky's general fund this past fiscal year and the previous one, considering those were their budget bills that they passed?
First, we have not received any update from the White House about a nomination that, if made, would be indefensible. An individual who aided the worst abuse of gubernatorial power in my lifetime and who is at least partially responsible for rapists and murderers walking the streets right now, some of which have caused harm since. By this point, they should certainly reach out and say, we are not going further. I can't give you a detailed example. The last time that our office has talked to them, anytime they contact us, we bring this up, we ask for an update, and we give them not just our position, but I think the position of all Kentuckians. We're going to end up with over $1 billion surplus. So there is enough credit to go around. I'm not worried about sharing it. Certainly, the legislature puts certain things into effect, but you also have operations. And I bet if it was the other way around, the legislature wouldn't be claiming credit for a budget deficit. So listen, it's just good for Kentucky families. We get into this D or R or red or blue or left or right. I'm just focused on moving the state forward. So anybody wants to take a little bit of credit for over $1 billion, that's fine. I think the facts are pretty clear that under this administration, we have the 2 largest budget surpluses ever, the only ones over $1 billion. We have record-breaking economic development. We have some of the lowest unemployment rates in our history. Those are all good news. And I would just be a little worried about those who are out there trying to run us down and to talk down about us, because we're looking at so many other companies right now. We should be building ourselves up. If you're running Kentucky down because you want a certain job, you're putting your interests above the interests of the Commonwealth. Let's all be excited about what's going on. And if folks are claiming credit for it, then let's also talk about how there are a lot of really good things going on out there, even if the present is challenging. Jessica Payne, Murray, Ledger, and Times.
Hi, thank you, Governor. I actually have 2 questions as well on 2 unrelated topics, if that's okay. My first question is about West Kentucky farmers and the closure of the granary in Mayfield. I know that the state is helping pay for those additional transportation expenses, but I've heard from a number of farmers that are concerned about other problems that are related to that, such as having combines sitting idle in fields while they're waiting for the transport trucks to return. So I'm curious, does the state have any plans to provide assistance to farmers with these other related expenses? And then my second question is, that is, are there any plans to align Kentucky's weekly COVID reporting with the CDC's week? And if not, I guess the question is for Dr. Stack. Does he have any recommendations for how Kentuckians can use the CDC's data released on Thursdays in combination with KDPH's data that's released on Mondays?
I think right now it takes a little bit of time to get what the CDC gives us and to ultimately push it out from the Kentucky Department of Public Health. It's done late on a Thursday, so Monday is the reasonable time period that we can put all of that data in a form for people to access. Certainly, if things become easier on the interface, we'd look at what's possible there. Western Kentucky Farmers, the program that we created was brought to us by farmers, and they went through all the different costs, not just the transportation costs. And what they said is, if you could help us with about 50 cents per bushel, then we think we could make that work, or at least it'd be a big help. Using that number, and that was the high end of the number that was thrown out, we went to the granary, which has been destroyed, and we asked them how many bushels, and we got an overall number that we thought would be in the $2 to $3 million range. Well, it turns out the granary is emptied and refilled. And so since the time we've announced it, the amount of money that it's going to take, but we are going to go ahead and provide it, may have even doubled in what we're going to be providing to farmers. So these payments are meant to help alleviate any of the costs that they have. We'll continue to look for other ways to help, and then trying to balance the various uses of the fund, wanting to help out with economically impacted farmers, also wanting to help that family that, because of inflation and the rest, may be able to rebuild but can't afford the refrigerator. So doing our best each and every day, and we'll continue to listen, continue to help, continue to try to connect farmers to the U.S. programs too. I will say, maybe more than any other federal agency, agriculture, USDA and others have really tried to problem solve in a number of areas, and I appreciate that. That may be because several of the highest ranking officials in that federal cabinet are Kentuckians, which we appreciate. Josh James, WUKY.
Thanks, Governor. I'm wondering if, while the medical cannabis town halls continue, if you have any updates on how the process of examining executive options is going. I know you've got Representative Nemus sympathetic but skeptical that you have any real options there. Is that window of what's possible narrowing? Are you as confident as you were before that you can unilaterally move forward with legalization?
Well, we are continuing that research. We are not ready to announce any results, but certainly we never suggested we would be able to reach full legalization operating independently. But I am more than confident. I'd like to think I'm more than competent too, but I'm more than confident that we are going to be able to move the needle, and we are going to be able to move ahead on this topic, and that some actions are going to be taken. What we're doing these town halls for is everybody deserves to be a part. Over 90% of Kentuckians have suggested that they are for this, and the legislature isn't listening to them at all. So we're trying to give them a voice in the ultimate decision-making that's happening. But yes, I expect that there will be some results that in the very least will provide some relief to a number of Kentuckians who deserve it. John Boyle, WFPL.
Hi, Governor. I wanted to ask you about the charter school bill. It went into effect today, and in the past, you've alluded to lawsuits. And I wanted to get an update from you to see if you're aware of any that are in the works currently.
Yeah, I need to check on that for you, John, because certainly it's been challenged in the past, and if this one hasn't been challenged, it was certainly my expectation. The same reasons that it was struck down in the past, I believe, are still present. Remember, they said you can't just pick out one area, Jefferson County. Well, this time they just picked out two areas. That was before ruled upon. You would see the very same problem right now. And listen, I believe charter schools are unconstitutional, period. The Constitution talks about public dollars only going to public schools. I believe that there are decisions in the past that have held that. And listen, the idea that we would take money away from our public schools because you don't think that they're doing well enough, and then give them to a different group that you put less restrictions on than the public schools, not only isn't fair, it's going to leave more students behind than it's going to lift up. I believe in our public schools. I believe in our educators in our public schools. I will continue to support them. I will continue to oppose charter schools, and I believe that they are unconstitutional. Melissa Patrick, Kentucky Health News.
Hi, Governor. My question's for Dr. Stack. The White House coronavirus response coordinator has said there's a looming COVID-19 vaccine and test shortage as we approach the next wave of the pandemic in the fall. Congress has so far refused to fund such efforts. So can you please comment on this, and what if this funding is not approved, what would that mean for Kentuckians around access to COVID-19 vaccines and testing?
Sure. Thank you, Melissa. So the question has to do with Dr. Shah, the White House coronavirus project leader, saying that they may not have enough resources to get vaccine or treatments for the fall. He's exactly correct. Congress hasn't given any additional resources, and so the federal government does not have extra resources to purchase more vaccine and purchase more therapeutics. And I'll make it very concrete. We're going to run out of monoclonal antibodies here in the next few weeks, and the monoclonal sites are going to shut. There won't be any more monoclonal antibodies in Kentucky or any state in the next few weeks because the federal government has no more money to purchase them. Hopefully, we get to a situation where that won't happen with the vaccines. They were able to redistribute funds within what was available to them to make sure they had enough vaccine for the 6 month and older contingent right now. But when we look to the fall, when we look to new vaccines that cover multiple variants, the kinds of innovation that we need to try to keep ourselves safe as the virus continues to evolve, if Congress doesn't grant more money to the administration has said unequivocally they will unfortunately not have the resources. And then that means we won't be able to just tell every citizen and every Kentuckian, you can just go and at no cost to yourself get a vaccine at the, well over 1,000 locations in the Commonwealth that you can go get a vaccine today. Now, that would mean your insurance would have to cover it, or you'd have to pay for it yourself, and the pharmaceutical companies may not innovate as quickly without the government there to help make sure that they're going to be able to have people use the vaccine and get paid for it. So I hope they'll take action. We'll do everything we can to keep Kentuckians safe, regardless of the hand we're dealt, and we'll do our best to communicate as openly and clearly with all of Kentucky about where we find ourselves. But for right now, vaccine is abundant. So if you're eligible, please go out and get it.
All right, I close today by asking Kentuckians and really Americans to do something that we had to do a lot during the pandemic. Just breathe. Take a breath. We are bombarded right now, whether it's social media or cable news, with this crisis and that crisis. And it just, again, if you stack it all up between the pandemic and the ice storms and the tornadoes and everything that's pushed down, it can be really overwhelming. We are going to make it through this. We haven't gotten through 2 years of a pandemic on accident. We are tough people, and even in tough times, we can and we will push through. If you're struggling to make ends meet, ask for a little bit of help. We have these programs. If you're at risk, go ahead and put that mask back on and protect yourself and your family during COVID. We will make it through challenging times. And I tell you, you've seen these jobs announcements. What's on the other end in Kentucky is brighter than just about in any other state. While we're, again, I think the right word is bombarded with negative news, because that's what gets clicks and drives so much of that business out there. We have good things that are going on that's going to put my kids and your kids and grandkids in a position to achieve things that most of us could have only dreamed about, and will result in Kentucky being a leader and never a follower again. But take care of yourself. I mean, it really can seem like all these different things, when I listed all the different factors that are leading to the price of food going up, how could they all be happening at the same time? And we are going to make it. lean on each other, lean on your family, hold people you love close, and don't give in to hate or to anger or to fear. Again, if we are the compassionate, good people that I know we are, that we see after disasters, and we need every day, not just in the difficult times. As long as we continue to be those people, there's a big, bright future ahead of us. Thank y'all.